today I thought it'd be interesting to look at the Old Testament book of Proverbs. Proverbs is a book we know is there, but it's a book we don't normally turn to a lot. We may know a few things out of it, but not much. And that's why sometimes for the chat use something from Proverbs rather than just Psalms all the time. It's because Proverbs doesn't get used a lot. Proverbs is right about in the middle of the Old Testament. Now, the definition of a proverb is a short saying that gives advice or states a general truth. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush is a proverb. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Good fences make good neighbors. Those are all proverbs. And the book of Proverbs in the Bible contains things like that, but it also has a lot of other different kinds of stuff in there. And it has so many different kinds of things in there that many biblical scholars believe it originated as separate writings and was at some point combined to form one book. Of course, when that happens, anyone's guess. The earliest we find the book of Proverbs in the form it is today is 200 to 300 years before the time of Jesus, with the version of the Jewish scriptures known as the Septuagint. We have no idea in what form, if any, it existed before then. Now, Proverbs is one of the books in the Old Testament that many biblical scholars feel may have originated outside of the Hebrew religion. And just like the books of Job and the Song of Songs, it's very different than the rest of the Old Testament. And that's why many biblical scholars feel that it originated elsewhere. It's important to keep in mind that according to the archaeological record and according to the Old Testament itself, the Hebrew and then the Jewish people never worshiped just one God. They were always worshiping a number of different gods in various ways. Now, Proverbs is what's called wisdom literature. There are 5 books in the Old Testament that are classified as wisdom. That is Proverbs, the book of Job, Song of Songs, Ecclesiastes, and some of the Psalms. Now, wisdom literature was common in many ancient religions and ancient civilizations. It is concerned with right living. It is advice on the practical aspects of living day to day. It's living the day-to-day life. How do you live your daily, mundane life? So wisdom literature doesn't so much present laws to follow as it is advice on how to live your daily life. The source of wisdom literature is people's experiences and their observation. It is the result of people living life, observing and paying attention to what's happening around them, what's happening to them, and then they think about it, they ponder on it. They have observed the world and seen what happened, and they're trying to make sense of it, and they offer advice based on what they have seen in life. So that's what wisdom literature is. But what about wisdom itself? What is wisdom? Now, the Greek word that is translated as wisdom is the word Sophia, and that literally means clarity. It means that you see things clearly. You see them as they are. In other words, you understand how things work. You understand how things really are. And therefore, you have clarity. You see it as it is. You understand it as it is. And since you do that, you know the right course of action in any given situation. And that's the reason you want wisdom. So you'll know the right course of action in any given situation. Remember a little while ago we talked about wisdom literature, and what it's concerned about is advice how you live your mundane daily life. And so wisdom is there to give you the right course of action. Now, I'd like for us to go through some of the parts of Proverbs. The first 7 chapters of Proverbs are written as advice a father gives to his son. And the writer addresses it to my son. This does not mean literally. It is a father giving son advice. It is a literary advice. A person with greater wisdom often refers to someone with less wisdom who they're trying to pass along wisdom to as my son. And so that's chapters 1 through 7. Chapters 8 and 9 are a completely different style. They talk about wisdom, and wisdom is a female character. Remember, we heard she stands in the streets and calls out. Now, there is disagreement here among biblical scholars whether this is a literary device, a personification, or many biblical scholars believe that there was a time when it was believed that there existed a spiritual entity called Sophia who held wisdom and granted it to people. Now, it is impossible to know today whether in the book of Proverbs it's just a literary personification or whether it originated with the belief that it was talking about a distinct spiritual entity who grants wisdom. Now that's chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 10 has a different section, and this is getting into more of what we think of when we get to Proverbs. It's a number of 2-line sayings, like, he who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. There's chapter and chapter and chapter of these sayings. Most of them are constructed at opposites. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest, though, is a son who causes shame. You can see they are opposites. And many of these proverbs in this section are opposites like that. Now, in the middle of chapter 22, a completely different section begins. It is a section of 30 longer sayings, and some call these the 30 wise sayings. After that, there's another section with several chapters of short sayings. And then in chapter 30, we find something called the words of a man named Agur, son of Jacob. Nobody knows who they were. They're not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible. We don't know if they were from the Hebrew religion or some other. Then the final chapter, chapter 31, has 2 different parts. The first part is advice that King Lemuel's mother gave to him. Nobody knows who he was. It's not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible. And it's not clear if these people are from Judaism or the Hebrew religion or outside it. But then comes the final section. It's a description of a good wife. If you went to churches in the 60s and 70s to funerals of elderly women, you would maybe have heard that read in an elderly woman's funeral, a description of a good wife in the Book of Proverbs. It was read at my own grandmother's funeral in 1986. So that's an overview of the Book of Proverbs. Now, the Book of Proverbs opens and it says the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Of course, Solomon was David's son, the last king, before the kingdom split apart. This does not mean that it was believed that Solomon wrote the book. It indicates people believe that at least some of the Proverbs originated with him. Now, we talked earlier about the first part of the book of Proverbs being advice from a father to a son. One of the main things in that is warning against adultery. Here's something from chapter 5. The lips of an immoral woman drip honey. Her mouth is smoother than oil, but in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a 2-edged sword. Remove your way from her and do not go near the door of her house. chapter 6 says this: reproofs of instruction are the way of life, to keep you from the evil woman, from the flattering tongue of the seductress. Do not lust after her beauty in your heart, nor let her allure you with her eyes. For by means of a harlot, a man is reduced to a crust of breast, and an adulteress will prey upon his precious life. And from chapter 7, the adulteress says, I have spread my bed with tapestry and colored coverings of Egyptian linen. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloe, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with love. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. With her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. Immediately he went after her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a fool to the stock, till an arrow struck his liver. As a bird hastens to the snare, he did not know it would cost his life. Now see, loose women are portrayed as setting traps and snares, luring and catching gullible young men and destroying them. Then in chapter 8, a different section begins. This is where we meet wisdom, and she's also a woman. And she cries out, receive my instruction, receive silver, receive knowledge rather than choice gold. Wisdom is better than rubies. All the things one desire cannot be compared with wisdom. I dwell with prudence and find out knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, arrogance, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth I hate. Counsel is mine, sound wisdom. I am understanding. I have strength. Riches and honor are with me, enduring riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yes, better than fine gold. She says, come and eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Forsake foolishness and live. Go in the way of understanding. As this section ends, at the end of chapter 9, the woman over here, wisdom, is compared with the woman over here, the adulteress. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house on a seat by the highest places of the city to call to those who pass by. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depth of Sheol. Now it's interesting the way this is put together. We meet two women. One is the adulteress, who lures men to their doom. The other is wisdom. She offers understanding. And she offers what is better than the finest gold. She offers the way that leads to life. And so these two women are contrasted. Now I want us to consider something about sayings in the book of Proverbs in general. From chapter 12 it says, no grave trouble will overtake the righteous, but the wicked shall be filled with evil. From chapter 14 it says, the house of the wicked will be overthrown, but the tent of the upright will flourish. Is that the way things really work? It just said no grave trouble will overtake the righteous. Have you ever known righteous people who got overtaken with grave trouble? Sure, we all have. It says the house of the wicked will be overthrown, but the tent of the upright will flourish. We live in a society today that operates exactly as the opposite of that. It's the wicked who flourish today, and then hit the upright who struggle. So when we come across sayings like this in Proverbs, we think, these things aren't true. This is not the way the world works. It's important to realize that these proverbs are not intended to state universal truth. We saw earlier how they are the result of people observing and seeing how things work. But they don't always describe the way things actually work. Sometimes they describe the way things should work. Not necessarily the way they do, but the way they should. And that's why you can't go to the Book of Proverbs and see it as universal truths. Sometimes things work this way, sometimes they don't. But whether they always do work that way, that's the way they should work. And so that's how we've got to look at it. And I know this can be confusing, but keep in mind here that what we're dealing with here is ancient literature. We're not dealing with statements of universal truth. We're dealing with ancient literature. It's just like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Apples are a healthy food to eat. But nobody really believes that if you eat an apple every day, you're never going to get sick. That's not apple a day keeps the doctor away. We say that, but we know that, if we eat apple every day, it's not going to keep you from getting sick all the time. That's the way you have to look at the things in the Book of Proverbs. It should not be read as saying that if you are righteous, you will flourish, but if you are wicked, all sorts of bad things will happen. They do say that, but keep in mind that we're dealing with a literary genre, and we cannot look at these as formulas. We can't say, okay, here's what I want to happen, so let me go to Proverbs and see what I have to do to get it to happen. And then go to Proverbs and say, oh, okay, now I see what I have to do. For example, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Well, let's say I go to Proverbs and I say, well, I want to turn away wrath, so I'm going to give a soft answer. And if a soft answer, that's what's going to turn away wrath. So I give a soft answer. And it don't turn away the wrath. So see, these are not formulas. You can give a soft answer, and sometimes it will turn away wrath, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes the other person is still mad. We've all had that experience. So you can't look at it as formulas. Okay, I want it to turn out this way, so according to Proverbs, this is what I'm going to do. They're not universal truths. They're general advice. General advice. So with that in mind, I want us to look at some of the Proverbs in the section from chapters 10 through 22. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. When pride comes, there comes shame, but with the humble is wisdom. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but the city is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. Poverty and shame will come to him who disdains correction, but he who regards a rebuke will be honored. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. The poor man is hated even by his own neighbor, but the rich man has many friends. When a man's ways please the Lord, even his enemies will be at peace with him. Better to have a dry morsel in a piece a house full of feasting with strife. The discretion of a man makes him slow to anger, and his glory is to overlook a transgression. Now, the 30 longer sayings, I just wanted to read you 2 of those. Well, 3. Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make wings. They fly away like an eagle. It is not good to show partiality in judgment. He who says to the wicked, you are righteous, him the people will curse. Nations will abhor him. Those who rebuke the wicked will have delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and so shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. Now remember, this is advice coming from people's experiences. They see something, think about it, and try to get a lesson from it. Now here's some more of the short sayings. Have you found honey? Eat only as much as you want, lest you be filled with it and vomit. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. As a door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy man turn on his bed. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what tomorrow may bring forth. As water reflects the face, so a man's heart reveals the man. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. A fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back. Now the next section is from an unknown man called Anger. There is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. There is a generation that is pure in its own eyes, yet is not washed from its filth. There is a generation, oh, how lofty their eyes. Their eyes are lifted up. Their teeth are like swords. Their fangs are like knives to devour the poor and needy. If you have been foolish in exalting yourself, or if you have devised evil, put your hand on your mouth. The churning of milk produces butter. The wringing of the nose produces blood. So wrath produces strife. The next part is advice from King Lemuel's mother. Open your mouth for the speechless, in the case of all who are appointed to die. Open your mouth and judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. In the Book of Proverbs, then, has the section about the good wife. She seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ship bringing food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household. She considers a field and buys it. From her profit she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arm. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches her hands out to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hands to the needy. And so the book of Proverbs ends. We can demonstrate that it is at least 2,300 years old. It was written in a different time and a different place. The time when life was much different than it is today. And many of the images it uses are strange to us because they're images that people would have been familiar with back then, but of course we're not. But even so, some of the images are strange to us. It talks about timeless things. And there are several things you see over and over again. Over and over again in Proverbs, it tells us to help the poor and needy. Over and over again in Proverbs, it warns us not to be boastful and haughty. Over and over again in Proverbs, it tells us to be humble, quiet, honest. It warns against being lazy. It advises us to listen to our parents. And so I hope you'll read some of the book of Proverbs. Don't read it as absolute truth. Just read it as reflecting the struggles of people from at least 2,300 years ago, searching to find some way to live in the world.